Yeah, I would say so. Every time you think, well, this has got to be rock bottom. Wait a minute, there's another game next week, so that could be a new bottom. And boy, I mean, when you talk about the Patriots next week, I mean, it could be even worse, which is scary in and of itself. But I know you're talking about this week and where they are, and my God, yeah, it's just been ugly. It's just every time you think you've seen the worst, there it is again. This team just goes out, and you really question what their motivation is when they take the field and they're warming up, because right now it doesn't look like they're playing for anybody, not even themselves.
All right, let's look at some of the grades here. Obviously, many Fs, I think 7 in all, and, obviously just a terrible day. Let's start again. Chip Kelly, I think this is the third week in a row that he got an F. What was it about this time that Chip Kelly failed?
To me, I just continue to see no sense of adjustments. The stubbornness continues where in terms of offensive play calling, you're swinging DeMarco Murray on the outside. You're asking him to run around the tackles. It became very predictable yet again. I mean, I was sitting there watching the game going up, and here comes DeMarco Murray off the outside. Sure enough, there it was. It was snuffed out. There's just no leadership on the offense as well. And I think, I look at Chip Kelly as trying to be the guy who it's, as a head coach, you certainly want to put your players in position to succeed, and I just don't see him doing that with these guys. The rotations he runs with these receivers, you just don't see your most explosive unit out there at one time. He seems to kind of rotate them out in pairs with Miles Austin and Riley Cooper, as well as Josh Huff, getting in there, and it's almost like your best unit at this point looks to be Huff, Aguilar, and Matthews. You don't really find those three on the field at the same time. I just continue to see just a lack of adjustments, and to me that's been the most aggravating thing. As you watch a game go on, they go into the locker room at halftime, and in the past they've come out and they look to have adjusted to things, and that's not happening right now.
Billy Davis, he's been asked many times, is Billy Davis's job in trouble? He said, no, I think Billy's a good coach. You gave him an F. What is up with Billy Davis? And as you gave the entire defense an F, let's lump them together.
Well, for right now, I mean, there's been a lot of question about whether or not the team is playing for Chip Kelly, and to me it looked a lot like on Thursday that I had the question of whether or not the defensive players are playing for Billy Davis, because I didn't see any desire out there to go out and try to make plays. And in Billy Davis's point of view, I don't understand what he's thinking here. I do not understand how you leave Eric Rowe on an island against one of, if not the best receiver in football right now. And that, to me, was just the biggest gaffe that I could have seen. And honestly, it was probably the reason the game got way out of hand when it did. It's not Eric Rowe's fault. The guy had minimal reps, and you didn't give him any safety help. And behind closed doors, I'd love to have heard what some of those veterans thought when the game was over about why they weren't asked to go over and try to help him more as part of the game plan. They had halftime where, again, you could talk about adjustments. Billy Davis did not make any of them. If what you're doing by giving quarterbacks all kinds of time to throw the ball is not working, logic says to me, let's go out there and blitz these guys, because it can't get any worse than what it is right now.
Yeah,
he doesn't do that. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it was a little harsh to give Rowe an F, because I thought he actually played pretty well. He had some good coverage. I thought the one throw Stafford put was right on the money, but you're right. I don't know that it was Rowe's fault. He's asked after, number one, Scott, I think it's a crime that Rowe hasn't been given more playing time this year. I mean, you get a guy in the second round, and you're playing E.J. Biggers over him. The guy has virtually had no snaps on defense, and then you stick him out there and ask him to play Johnson. I don't know how you at least don't get him out there in some packages and some plays. He played a little bit in that Jets game. He ends up with an interception. He had a pass broken up in that Jets game. Some guys just need to go play, even if they're not, the standout in practice. So that's where I have a problem with the Eagles using Rowe. But I thought for the most part, he had decent coverage on Johnson for most of the day. You're just not going to defend one-on-one Calvin Johnson.
Yeah, I hated to give Eric Rowe an F, because I just felt like the guy was put, again, I use this phrase a lot, coach's job is to put a player in a position to succeed, and I thought Eric Rowe was put in a position to fail right from the beginning, because going one-on-one against Johnson, when he, like we said, hasn't had many reps, I hated putting that on Rowe, because that wasn't his fault. He had to go out there and do it, and at times he was doing a good job, as you said, of defending it. But if you play the percentages, and I think that's what Stafford and Johnson were doing, was, you know what, I'm just going to keep throwing it to you if they're going to leave him one-on-one on you, and eventually I know you're going to win that matchup for a touchdown, and that's what happened. And I just think, yes, I agree with you. Eric Rowe needs to play more. That's part of developing young talent. They didn't do it at all with Marcus Smith last year, and I understand part of the reason why. They're not doing it with Eric Rowe here either this year, and that's not how you build a future. You don't build a future if you can't get those young guys to develop.
Scott Grayson's got Grayson's grades at 97.3 ESPN.com. I want to go through a couple of more real fast. DeMarco Murray got a C. I got to question you on that one there a little bit, Scott, because I think he had, 30 yards on however many carries. He had 19 yards on one carry, and I get it. I don't think they're using him the right way either. So do you think that Murray would be better in a more conventional NFL system?
I feel like he would, yes. I feel like he did the short answer, yes. I feel like he would do a much better job of running between the tackles, and that's what obviously everybody knows that he can do. And that's his forte. If the Eagles will use him more like that, I think he could work here, but they don't do that. And the reason I gave him a C was because I didn't want to penalize him for some of the gaps of the offensive line. I mean, it's been a problem this year. He just hasn't had many holes to run through, and like I said before, Chip Kelly's asked him to run along the outside. So, it makes me wonder that if, when you start looking at the future, if the Eagles do cut Chip Kelly loose or he leaves, do they start dangling DeMarco Murray out there as trade bait for somebody else, or do they look to bring in a guy who will use him better to fit his skill set? It's, it's interesting when you look down the line, but DeMarco Murray right now is not being used to his strengths.
No, I agree. I mean, this guy won the rushing championship last year. I'm not saying that he's a consistent 1,500-yard rusher, but he's averaging 3.5 yards a carry. A couple other things to get to here on the bright spot. Brent Selleck has played pretty well. The tight ends have been a little bit more involved the last couple of weeks. But I want to ask you more about moving forward here. Is there anything that suggests in a wide-open NFC East that this team can be a factor through the last 5 games?
Not unless they start finding any kind of fire inside themselves. I mean, it's funny. In this league, it's every given week, and you see how everything is played out. I felt like everything from the beginning is laid out in the Eagles' favor. They only had to leave the Eastern time zone one time when you look at the schedule. You look at how they're getting some teams. You knock out Tony Romo. You get the Cowboys without Dez Bryant. Now you get the Patriots potentially without Deion Lewis, Gronk, without Edelman, without Amendola. I mean, it's set up again for you to potentially have an opportunity that's really right there for the taking. I just don't see this team taking it. And if they do, if they somehow find a way to beat the Patriots, maybe that will be the fuel on the fire that gets this team moving forward. But, I mean, it's hard to believe they're one game out, and they can't do anything to get out of their own way.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And the Giants were awful the other day. Dallas was hideous on Thanksgiving Day. I've said Dallas was in it. Now Romo gone and not coming back. See, I gave Dallas a shot with Romo back. Now they're done. All right, now they're out of it. They're out of it. But the other 3 teams are very much still alive. And don't forget, Philadelphia does play Washington and New York the final 2 weeks of the year. So if they can be within striking distance the last 2 weeks, they could control their own destiny unbelievably enough. All right, Scott Grayson's got Grayson's grades over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Hope you enjoyed the holiday, Scott.
Yeah, I did after that game was finally over.
You will be in Foxborough, will you? You're going up there, right?
Yeah.
Or if you change your itinerary on that one.
The thought has crossed my mind, but yeah, you never know who's going to get fired after that game, so I might as well go.
Good point. So Scott will be in Foxborough, and when are you heading up there?
I'm just going to go up on Saturday and Saturday night, and I'll be there Sunday.
Cool. All right, so Scott will be up there. We'll talk to him on Monday with Grayson's grades over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Thanks, bud.
All right, thanks a lot, Mike.